Hey Kaspa Warriors, today we're going to be looking at some fresh ideas in the Levitsky attack, and without wasting much of your time, let's dive in. If you want to go through my study PGNs, such as the one I'm using in this study, you can visit my Patreon page. The link is in the comment section down below. And hey, don't just watch, that's not encouraging at all. You can simply share this video, hit the like button, and subscribe. This is where white begins with d4, and then after d5 by black, which is the top played move by the way, you immediately go bishop g5. This is called the Levitsky attack, and honestly, according to the results I see in the Masters database, I don't think the Levitsky attack is a bad opening choice. Nope, you can see 31% win rate for white at best. There's also 35% etc. The only challenging move I've seen here is the move pawn to f6, which I'm going to conclude with. So bishop g5 is an immediate attack in hopes of slowing black's development via pinning the pawn on e7. It is here where you're going to be winning most of your bullet games, cause most lazy thinkers just end up removing pawn to e6. And if you remember, I demonstrated this in a live game where my opponent blundered their queen in this way. People have just become lazy, you guys. And here's the clip from my previous video. Let's try the Levitsky. You see? Just like that. I want a free queen. But anywho, this is not the point of this study. Today I just want to show you something that you can play in longer time control matches and serious federated games. Black can play knight f6 or pawn to h6, among many other things, and we are going to conclude with the move pawn to f6. So let's start with knight f6. First, let me show you the safest way of playing this, you guys. You simply take on f6, and after ef, which is the top played move, you now start thinking of positioning all your pawns on dark squares, maybe as highlighted on the board. Why? Because you just traded off your dark squared bishop, so you need to place your pawns on dark squares to replace the role of the dark squared bishop and that. So it is from here where you can continue playing your stonewall, that's if you so wish, or some kind of the Catalan without the dark squared bishop, or the queen's gambit. But first, let me show you a beautiful trap that is similar to the Caro-Kann trap in the Tentacle variation, where we go pawn to e3 first. And if black plays bishop d6, the top played move, we first go bishop f5, not knight f3. Why? Because if we don't play bishop d3 immediately, maybe black may play bishop f5 and we'll have some troubles. It means we're just going to rely on this other option or probably exchange bishops. So you go bishop d3 immediately before playing any other thing. Say, what if black castles? Now this is when you go knight f3. Now if you check what is happening in the Lichess database, you can see that most black players play bishop g4. While h3 is playable, these are moments where I love advancing my h-pawn to h4. And if black plays a lazy move like rook e8, I should submit to you guys that against unprepared opponents, you may try this Greek gift sacrifice, because if king takes happens, yes, knight g5 check works. In that, if black takes, you first of all want to take the light squared bishop, not the g5 pawn. I'll show you the reason why. So queen takes first. And if something like pawn to g6, now this is when you give a check. If they play king g7, it is your rook that you want to be in front and not your queen. Let your queen be behind the rook. So you can play rook h6. But I find knight c3 to be more attacking first. Why? It comes with some nasty ideas. For example, if black just goes ahead and plays rook h8, you can even castle long first. There's nothing much they can do. If they play c6, you immediately go pawn to e4 or pawn to f4. I love e4 in that it comes with another threat. If they try to exchange queens, you say no to that because your queen is more powerful and you're just one move away from checkmating them. If they take, just an example, this is what people do, right? You go queen f6, and on the next move you checkmate them like that. So you may want to try this against unprepared opponents, but I'm just here to show you the most reliable lines. So instead of playing knight f3 after you play bishop d3, the most important move, I propose you turn this quickly into the stonewall. Knight d2 is playable, but first you go f4. So this is another way to play the stonewall. If c5, you just remember to play c3 so that your bishop has a breather. If pawn takes, you always want to take back with your c pawn so that your your center remains closed. If rook e8, an example, you go king f2, moving away from that pin, and everything is okay. If queen e7, queen e2 makes more sense to me, leaving an option to go h5 in the near future. And let's say knight c6, maybe they want to do this. You can go knight c3, this attacks that pawn. In case of knight b4, you always want to save your bishop, because I mean this is where it's facing, that's your main attacker. Say bishop e6, because what else can they do to protect that? You go a3, let the knight go back. You don't want to entertain your enemy's pieces in your territory. And these are moments I love expanding on the king side like this. Maybe you can even start with pawn to g4, also stopping pawn to f5, right? These moves look natural and good at human level. Or maybe pawn to f5, right? f5 is kind of an attacking move if you think about it. If bishop d7, you have knight f3. If there's a rook that should be on e1, in my opinion, is the a rook, because you want your king's rook to start attacking from this angle. You're going to start advancing all your pawns. Look at where your last squad bishop is, and these are openings that people play in serious FIDE rated games to secure victories. Okay, that's one way of playing the Levitsky attack with bishop g5. If your opponent plays knight f6, just take, and after pawn takes, which is the main line, you start thinking of placing all your pawns on dark squares like that. I mean, since you don't have a dark squad bishop. Now let me show you my favorite line, which is more positional. After pawn to e3, if black doesn't allow you to play bishop d3 immediately, let's say they go bishop f5 or pawn to c5, this is where you can start thinking of positioning all your pawns on dark squares. This is very much easy. Sometimes you can challenge that light squad bishop first like this, bishop d3. If they take, well and good, you take back with your queen. But most of the times they play bishop g6, wanting you to take so that you help them pave the way for their rook. And these are moments where pawn to h4 becomes more useful, as you can see. If h6 or h5, that's only bad because after bishop takes and pawn takes, you now have a point of attack. That's a new weakness. People play pawn to f5 here, but that only allows you to win a free pawn. As highlighted on the board, you are going to give a check with your queen and win the b7 pawn, then move on with life. So now you know, just remember that if bishop g6 is played, after you go bishop d3, just remember to start attacking on that side of the board. You're going to win the game. If black takes after bishop d3, you just go queen takes. And then if they continue playing normal moves like bishop d6, again you can go queen b5 check. There's always this idea of winning a free pawn. Again, these are kinds of openings that people play in serious, classical, and FIDE rated games, because in longer time control matches, all that matters is one extra pawn and your opponent will start struggling. If you don't like this idea, you have another option to develop your knight, then castle shot, then start playing on the queen side. That's what this means. Now coming down to people who want to be very positional, after bishop takes knight and pawn takes bishop, I propose you start thinking of the queen's gambit setup immediately. Of course, you are going to position all your pawns on dark squares except for this queen's gambit pawn, c4. So you want to use this in order to open up the queen side, because this is where you're going to be attacking from. Point is, if pawn takes happens, now you begin positioning all your pawns, starting with e3. This comes with an attack as if you want to get back that pawn. If black tries to hold on to that, by the way, this is always unacceptable due to a4. They can't play a6 due to pawn takes. You will win their rook. So if they play c6, remember that queen's gambit trap where you take on b5 and after pawn takes, you go queen f3 to win a free piece, either the rook or the knight or the bishop. There's no proper way to defend this position for black. So this is the expert way of handling the Levitsky attack. You just go pawn to c4 immediately, wait for them to take, then start opening up. You won't see advanced players taking on c4 due to what I just showed you. So they play moves like c5. This is so challenging. You need to know what to do against this. The simplest is not to take any pawn. Hear this from me. You want to leave the tension like that and go pawn to e3. Why? Because if pawn takes, you'll be happy to take back with the queen. And in case of pawn takes, again, you are just going to make them lose their right to castle before taking back your pawn like that. It all comes down to the pawn structure. So this is what you want to remain with. You don't want to remain with an isolated pawn. So whatever you do, just ensure that you do not remain with an isolated pawn. So again, after pawn to e3, this time if black starts with dc, you don't even have to take. Remember, the goal is not to remain with an isolated pawn. So you can go knight f3 if you want, or d5. Because next you're going to take like that. If they try to hold on, again you have f4 like we saw earlier. They can't play s6 due to ab, they're going to lose the rook. If queen f5 check, you have knight d2. If bishop d7, you can just take, and after bishop takes, you go knight c3, that is under attack. So maybe black is going to be forced to lose a bishop or something like that. You can even go queen g4, preventing bishop d6 or bishop e7. Besides, you have that. If knight d7, you have knight f3. If g6, you have queen e4 check, and that and this. So these are kinds of moves you are going to be making in the Levitsky attack. Now, apart from knight f6, as I said earlier, the other move you will see is pawn to h6. If that happens, you just go bishop h4. I find g5 to be an overextension. You have bishop g3. Pawns don't go backwards, right? So this means it'll be too risky for black to castle short. Anywho, bishop g7, you go c3. This is how the line goes. And after knight f6, you go pawn to e3. You begin putting all your pawns on dark squares. Like I said, if they castle short, look at this. But I find bishop d3 to be a great move. c5, knight e2, knight c6, knight d2. If c4, you have bishop c2 or bishop b1, cd. I love ed to prevent knight b4. Rook e8, preparing for pawn to e5. Then you continue playing your game from here. This is how most Levitsky attack games go. You can play h4 in this position. You can castle short to keep it safe, or whatever you want to do. Next, black is going to play pawn to e5. Then you just take. Lastly, if black plays the most challenging pawn to f6, the best I can advise is to transpose to the London. So kind of the hyper accelerated London system. Note that they kind of wasted a tempo with pawn to f6. So you are at liberty to go back to the London system. If c5 is played, you just go pawn to e3 so that if they take, you take back. If knight c6, maybe preparing for pawn to e5 again. You have knight f3 stopping that. Bishop g4, you go bishop e2. Again, you always see these kinds of moves where they push pawn to e5, trying to dominate on the center. So you take, and after pawn takes, you go back, e4, bishop e2. Remember, pawns don't go backwards, so if anything, black is just overextending their pawns. From here, you're going to castle short, play pawn to f3, open up the f file, and start attacking. That's why it's called the Levitsky attack. The last option for some doubting Thomases over there is to play this in a Catalan way. For example, after d4, d5, bishop g5, and knight f6, the most popular move, you first of all mess up their pawn structure like that and start thinking of fianchettoing, not playing e3 and bishop d3. So the way I would start this is by going pawn to c4 first, seeing what they want to do, and if c6, I'll first get rid of my weakness, then go knight c3 since I would love them to go bishop b4, and after bishop b4, I'll just go a3 to be honest, so that if they take, they just helped me to put my pawns on dark squares. This is one way grandmasters love playing this, though it's drawish. Castle short, e3. All of our pawns will be on dark squares, as you are going to see. Say bishop f5. I can play bishop d3, but again, we are talking about this kind of an arrangement where we fianchetto the bishop e4, bishop g2, rook e8, castle short. Then we start attacking on the queen side like that. You can also get rid of this light squared bishop by playing knight e1, then knight takes. So you're just going to leave your king side like that and continue playing on the queen side. It is the queen side that matters the most. And hey, want to take your chess seriously? Simply head over to the comment section down below and find a special link to my courses that you should click. You will be redirected to my Patreon page where you can access all my wonderful courses. By the way, that's how you support this channel. And hey, if you really care about this channel and want to see us grow, click the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to turn on the bell notification icon for all my content. That way you won't miss any of my future uploads. Lastly, to get this free study PGN that I'm using in this video, simply scroll all the way down to the comment section and click the first link that you see, which will redirect you to a page that will ask you to subscribe before getting this PGN for free.